November 27, 1922, Gosport, Indiana, a small farming town surrounded by endless cornfields and dusty back roads. On that cold autumn morning, a boy named Eugene Morrison Stoner entered a world that would soon face the hardships of economic collapse and war. His family had little more than determination and faith, no fortune, no privilege, only the will to survive the Great Depression that was just over the horizon. No one in Gosport could have guessed that this quiet child, born to an ordinary family, would one day reshape the future of warfare. He wouldn't attend college. He wouldn't come from a line of engineers or soldiers. His path began with nothing but curiosity and a mind that refused to stop questioning how things worked. By the time Eugene was a teenager, the Great Depression had sunk its teeth into America. Families struggled to put food on the table, and dreams of higher education faded for many. Yet Stoner wasn't the kind to give up. He spent his school years taking things apart: clocks, engines, radios, not because anyone told him to, but because he wanted to understand how every piece fit together. In 1939, he graduated from Long Beach Polytechnic High School in California. His family had moved west, chasing opportunity like thousands of others who fled the failing farms of the Midwest. But even in California, times were hard. College was out of the question. There was no money and scholarships were rare. So Eugene did what practical young men did in those days. He went to work. He walked into the Vega Aircraft Company and asked for a job. They hired him to install gun mounts and armament systems in training aircraft. It wasn't glamorous, but it required precision, and that was something Stoner had in abundance. Day after day, he handled the metal that would soon shape his destiny: aircraft-grade aluminum. This was a material few gunsmiths had ever touched. Most firearm designers of the time were still working with steel and wood. Strong, yes, but heavy and prone to warping or rust. Aluminum, on the other hand, was light, corrosion-resistant, and when engineered properly, almost as strong as steel. Stoner didn't know it yet, but these long hours in the factory, surrounded by rivets, blueprints, and aircraft wings, were planting the seeds of a revolution. He began sketching designs in the margins of his notebooks: reimagined rifles, simplified mechanisms, lighter frames. He wasn't trained as an engineer, but his hands understood balance and his mind saw patterns others overlooked. The experts of his time insisted a lightweight automatic rifle could never exist. The physics, they said, simply didn't allow it. The materials weren't strong enough. The recoil was too violent. It was, by every traditional standard, impossible. But Eugene Morrison Stoner wasn't a man who bowed to tradition. He didn't yet have the answers, but he had questions that would one day challenge everything the military believed about modern weapons. And soon, history would hand him the experience that turned those questions into a mission. December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor. The world changed overnight. December 7, 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor jolted America into World War II. Like millions of other young men, Eugene Stoner, only 19 at the time, felt the pull of duty and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He was assigned to aviation ordnance, a field that suited his mechanical instincts perfectly. Instead of flying, Stoner worked on the weapons that kept aircraft alive in battle: machine guns, bomb racks, and complex firing mechanisms. The Marines sent him first to the South Pacific and later to northern China. Though he didn't see frontline combat, he witnessed something just as valuable for a man destined to design weapons. He saw how and why they failed. He saw rifles jammed in humid jungles, machine guns overheating in the sun, bolts snapping from dust and grit. Stoner watched skilled Marines wrestle with weapons that should have saved their lives, but instead slowed them down. The M1 Garand, powerful, reliable in theory, proved heavy and cumbersome in the swamps. The Browning automatic rifle hit hard but weighed almost 20 pounds, exhausting soldiers before the fight even began. and the M1941 Johnson rifle, though innovative, was considered too fragile for harsh field conditions. Most soldiers complained and moved on. Stoner observed, learned, and sketched every night. After long maintenance shifts, he would sit with a pencil and notebook drawing new systems, reimagining how gas pressure could cycle a bolt, how recoil could be redirected. His fellow Marines joked that he never stopped thinking about gun, and they were right. By 1943, he had begun crafting concepts for lightweight carbines in his free time, using spare parts and scraps of aluminum where possible. He was unknowingly developing the key design elements that would later define his legacy: a straight-line stock that controlled recoil, a simplified gas system that removed heavy rods and springs, and a modular construction that allowed for quick disassembly and repair. He wasn't following any manual. He was following logic. When the war ended in 1945, Stoner returned home at just 22 years old, armed not with a degree but with experience few engineers could match. He had spent 4 years studying the harsh truths of battlefield weaponry, lessons no classroom could teach. Back in California, he found work at Whitaker, a company that produced precision aircraft parts. He started on the factory floor running machines cutting metal, learning tolerances down to thousandths of an inch, but management quickly noticed his ability to solve mechanical problems faster than anyone else. Within months, he was promoted to design engineer. Working in aerospace manufacturing gave him something priceless: access to cutting-edge materials and techniques that traditional gun makers had never considered. He learned how to forge and machine 7075 T6 aluminum, a metal light enough for flight yet strong enough to handle incredible stress. He understood how to bond fiberglass and other composite materials into rigid, lightweight forms. To most people, this was just engineering. To Stoner, it was preparation. During the late 1940s and early 1950s, he spent his evenings in his garage, surrounded by blueprints and machine tools, designing rifles for a future that didn't yet exist. He wasn't trying to replicate what others had done. He was trying to reinvent what a rifle could be. Still, for almost a decade, he worked in obscurity. No major arms company wanted to take a risk on a self-taught designer with no formal training. But word of his prototypes began to circulate quietly among firearms experts. They saw something different in his work, a rare blend of simplicity, function, and precision. Then in 1954, a door opened that would change everything. A small division of Fairchild Engine and Airplane Corporation, known as Armalite, was looking for a chief design engineer. Their mission was bold: bring aerospace materials and aircraft-style engineering into the gun industry. They had no production line, no large staff, just a handful of dreamers and innovators willing to rethink tradition. For Eugene Stoner, it was the perfect match. On October 4th, 1954, he accepted the offer and walked into the modest Armalite workshop. He had no idea that the work he would do there would eventually arm millions, shape modern infantry tactics, and ignite one of the most heated debates in military history. When Eugene Stoner stepped into Armalite's small facility in 1954, he entered a workshop that looked more like an aircraft lab than a gun factory. There were no assembly lines, no rows of workers, just drafting tables, test benches, and a few men who believed that the future of firearms could be built from the same materials that powered the jet age. Armalite wasn't a traditional gun maker. It was an idea, a division born from Fairchild Engine and Airplane Corporation, a company known for airplanes, not rifles. Their philosophy was simple: take the strength, lightness, and innovation of aerospace engineering and apply it to weapons technology. Stoner was the perfect man for that vision. He brought with him years of hands-on experience machining aircraft alloys and a mind that questioned every rule the industry held sacred. At that time, the United States Army was searching for a new rifle to replace the aging M1 Garand. The requirements were strict: The new weapon needed to fire the 7.62 Cox 51mm NATO cartridge, remain accurate and reliable under extreme conditions, and, if possible, be lighter than the Garand's 9.5 pounds. Every major manufacturer submitted designs. Springfield Armory offered the T-44, essentially a modernized Garand. Fabrique Nationale presented their FNFAL, already winning favor in Europe. Both were solid rifles, built from the same materials that had defined gun-making for a century, steel and wood. Armalite's submission, under Stoner's direction, was something entirely different. They called it the AR-10, Armalite Rifle Model 10. It looked like it had arrived from the future. Its receiver was forged from 7075 T6 aluminum, the same alloy used in jet aircraft. Its stock and handguard were made from fiberglass reinforced with foam, giving it strength without the burden of weight. Inside, Stoner had redesigned the rifle's internal mechanics to function more efficiently than anything the Army had ever tested. The AR-10 weighed just 7.25 pounds, nearly 2 pounds lighter than any competing rifle firing the same powerful cartridge. When Army officials at Springfield Armory first saw the specifications, they assumed someone had made a mistake. It was considered impossible for a full-power automatic rifle to weigh that little and still function reliably. But when the prototype arrived in late 1956, disbelief turned to astonishment. The rifle's straight-line stock design, where the butt of the weapon aligned directly with the barrel, drastically reduced muzzle climb. Instead of kicking upward, recoil drove straight back into the shooter's shoulder, allowing faster, more accurate follow-up shots. The gas system was another revolution. Instead of heavy pistons and rods, Stoner's system used expanding gases tapped directly from the barrel to cycle the bolt. This direct impingement concept removed almost 2 pounds of moving parts and simplified the entire mechanism. When test firing began, observers noted something remarkable. The AR-10 was the easiest automatic rifle to control that they had ever handled. Despite firing a full-sized cartridge, its recoil was gentle, its accuracy exceptional, and its balance nearly perfect. For the first time, it seemed that a truly lightweight battle rifle might be possible. The official testing reports were overwhelmingly positive, but politics, timing, and tradition stood in the way. The Army, cautious and conservative, chose to move forward with Springfield's design. What would eventually become the M14 Armalite's rifle was not adopted, but Stoner had proven a point that no one could ignore. The impossible could be done. Even though the AR-10 never became the U.S. Army's standard rifle, its design was the foundation for something even greater, the AR-15. A smaller, lighter version chambered for a new 5.56mm cartridge. That rifle, refined and adapted, would evolve into the M16, the weapon that redefined modern infantry combat and remains in service, in one form or another to this day. The rest, as they say, is history. Eugene Morrison Stoner never set out to become famous. He wasn't seeking glory or fortune, just solutions. From a small-town boy who couldn't afford college, to a Marine who watched weapons fail, to a self-taught engineer who challenged the entire arms industry. His life was a blueprint of perseverance and innovation. He didn't follow the rules of his time. He rewrote them, one sketch, one prototype, one rifle at a time.